6:03. This is the monthly meeting of the Alameda County Water District, August 9th, 2018. And I'd like to ask the Secretary to please take the roll.
Directors Gunther, Akbari.
Here.
Huang.
Here.
Judy.
Here.
And Sethy.
Here. Director Gunther will be joining us a little bit later in the evening. Director Akbari, would you like to lead us in the salute to the flag?
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Okay, at this time we'll turn to public comments. Members of the public may address the board on any items that are not listed on the agenda, which are within the purview of the Alameda County Water District. Is there anyone who would like to address the board here? Mr. Lemos, you're welcome to the lectern.
Good evening, board members. I just you as a gallery. I don't know why. If it's not true, I'm sorry. No respect. First of all, I want to apologize for the last time we had a session here. I said that I've come here many times and nothing happens. Of course, a lot of things happen. You know, you guys know it, and I know it. But at the time, I was, you know, in one of those moods, I guess. Under my breath, I said, yeah, things are changing. ACWD is getting richer and I'm getting poorer. Nothing we can do about that, but that's the way it is. I got another little thing of Mr. Pickles. Think about it. I don't know if it makes any sense to anybody except me, but here it is. Mr. Pickles is having a thing with his wife and their cat, and he says, do we have anything to eat around here? And she says, huh? Mr. Pickles says, why do we have to say everything twice? I asked if we had anything to eat, and she goes, huh? Why don't you wear your hearing aid? What? Never mind, I'm not hungry anymore. And she looked at the cat, she says, I think it's working. You know, and I kind of find that, you know, the public comes here and addresses you guys, and I get that feeling of, huh, from the water company, not necessarily all you guys, but, so on that, I just like to say that maybe on the, I didn't bring it, but on the, what is it, the aqua paper that comes out in the mail?
The Aqueduct newsletter?
Yeah. I was thinking maybe instead of, you know, featuring an employee as to how he likes working for ACWD, maybe you could put a little smaller caption on that, and maybe given a report, like I was reading in this Voice that the Los Vaqueros, and they're expanding it, and at one time there was only 4 agencies that wanted to be on it. Now there's going to be 11. Everybody wants to get in there and put their little straw into that pond. And I was just wondering, does that affect ACWD, and in which way? You know, you have that semi-tropic bank down south. I was just wondering if that's full, and you know, do we still need Los Vaqueros? And I think the other one is Pacheco Pass, or Pacheco Dam or Reservoir, and San Luis. I was just wondering, is Santa Clara going to beat us out on the water distribution? Because it even says here that the new pipeline will connect the reservoir to South Bay. It doesn't say anything about us or East Bay, but I know East Bay, I think it was East Bay Mud is also wanting to get in on that. So, you know, little things like that would, at least from my view, is informative as to, you know, what's happening with the water company. I had a little incident here some months back, and one of the employees was putting the safety rod down, or rather it wasn't putting the safety rod down. So I happened to be walking by with my dog, and I asked him, I said, hey, would you mind putting that bar down? And he asked me, he says, why? And I says, because it's required. He said, who says it's required? I said, well, I say it's required.
Mr. Lemos, you have 30 seconds.
Thank you. And so with that, I get that, huh? Thank you.
Mr. Lemos, it's customary for the board not to respond under oral communications.
I understand.
But I, and I believe my fellow board members, are more than happy to talk with you offline. I'm going to ask staff to respond to the questions about Los Vaqueros and San Luis Reservoir, our Kern County water storage.
He was going to look into it and give a report.
But
no, I understand that.
but briefly, we have Los Vaqueros on our radar screen right now.
How about Pacheco?
I can make it brief. So regarding Los Vaqueros, we're going to be bringing that issue to the board in the next couple of months, probably. The board hasn't made any decisions yet. We are involved, but in terms of if and to what extent ACWD will take advantage of that project, we are an early partner with Contra Costa Water District. The board may choose to do so, but they're still waiting for the business case numbers and the costs associated with it. So that's regarding that project. Pacheco Pass is a Santa Clara Valley Water District project. Both projects have received the maximum amount of funding available through Proposition 1, which helps. But Pacheco Pass is Santa Clara Valley Water District. That's their project. That project will not directly benefit ACWD, but it indirectly benefits ACWD in that the more the Bay Area has reliable water supplies, it helps everybody and provides more flexibility. So I appreciate your comments on including more information in the aqueduct. It's just that at this particular point, we don't have a lot to share yet.
Well, the only reason why I wanted to bring that up was that a lot of people don't read the newspapers. This particular article came out in The Voice. Not a lot of people get it. And for information, you know, a lot of people just either don't care or don't look at the news or whatever. And since everybody gets that aqueduct, I thought maybe it would, you know, give some people a little bit of the news that's going on with.
Yeah, and I appreciate your perspective on that, and I think we will.
The other thing
we will do something.
Not worries me, but I'm wondering, you know, this thing is going to be what? Well, the state is going to put $2.7 billion into this project, and this thing is going to cost way up there. I forget where I saw it in the article, but and I says, whoa, I says, is ACW going to put $10 million into it? And where's that going to come from? Anyway, thank you very much for listening.
Yeah.
Thank you.
By the way, Proposition 1 was about $7.5 billion, right? And $2.7 billion of that was for water improvement system projects throughout the state, one of which is Pacheco Pass, another which is Los Vaqueros. So the California Water Commission has made a decision this past month for distribution of that $2.7 billion, but only a portion of that is going to go toward each of these projects.
No,
No,
that's separate.
yeah. And by the way, I'm going to have to start catching up on Mr. Pickles. All right. Okay. So we'll move to the consent calendar at this point. Would any directors like to add items to the consent calendar, please?
I'd like to add items 5.1 and 5.2, 5.4, and 5.5. I have an issue, comment I want to make on 5.3.
Okay, so we'll leave item 5.3 off the consent, addition to the consent calendar. Is there a second?
I'll second.
Secretary, please take the roll.
Okay. Directors Gunther, Akbari,
Aye.
Huang,
Aye.
Weed,
Aye.
and Sethy.
Aye. Okay, would someone like to move for approval of the consent calendar as amended?
I'll make that motion.
Okay, and I'll second that.
Directors Gunther, Akbari,
Aye.
Huang,
Aye.
Weed,
Aye.
and Sethy.
Aye. Okay, we'll move on to the action calendar items. The first one is item 5.6, a public hearing regarding the board's...
Did you want to do 5.3?
Sorry,
So that Director Weed can make a
I
statement?
apologize.
This is a...
5.3,
This
Director
was
Weed.
scheduled as a consent item. It's relating to a replacement for the rubber dam number 1 fabric. I've had a difficulty for a long time. I felt rubber dam number 1 should go the route of rubber dam number 2, and that it's surplus to our requirements, particularly now that we're upgrading rubber dam number 3, and therefore we'll be abstaining. It has followed all the procedures. The board has voted for the guidance, and this is yet one step in it, but I'm just using the abstention to express my concern with the process, with the project. So I'm open to someone making a motion for that.
I'll make a motion for the board to approve item 5.3 as an addition to the consent calendar.
Well, it's an item for vote, I would think.
I will make the motion to adopt staff recommendation for item 5.3.
I'll second.
Before voting, do you want to see if there's any public comments?
Yeah, any public input on the item? Okay, we welcome Director Gunther at 6:16 into the evening meeting.
Been in Fremont for half an hour.
So Directors Gunther,
Here?
We're voting on an item.
I'm going to stand on this, I was not here.
thank you for the record. Director Akbari,
Aye.
Huang,
Aye.
Weed,
Abstention.
and Sethy.
Aye. Okay. We're going to move on to item 5.6, and I'm having a little bit of an eyesight problem because I've got my long-distance driving lenses in right now, so it's hard to read right up close, so I'm going to do my best here. So item 5.6 is a public hearing regarding the board's compensation and expense reimbursement policies pertaining to the types of activities that are deemed to be official duties performed by directors at the request of the board. And so I'd like to inform the public of the following outline of how we're going to proceed here this evening. On behalf of the Board of Directors, I'd like to welcome the public and your participation in this evening's public hearing. The purpose of the public hearing is to receive and hear comments related to board members' compensation, including the types of activities that are deemed to be official duties performed at the request of the Board of Directors, and staff's recommendation to the current expense reimbursement policy for travel, lodging, and meals to simplify the administration of the policy. Thank you for attending. Now I'd like to review the ground rules as to how we're going to move forward here. One is process. I will open the public hearing ACWD staff will make a brief presentation. Upon conclusion of the presentation, the board and ACWD staff will receive public comments. The board and staff will receive all comments without responding. Upon conclusion of the public comments and/or protests, the board may request input from staff, will deliberate on the issue, and will respond to questions or comments from the public, and then we will close the public hearing. Second, public comment. Each person will have 5 minutes to comment. We will require strict compliance with this time limit so that everyone is treated in the same way. And so I'll turn it over to the general manager to assist us in moving forward with the public hearing.
Thank you, President Sethy. On January 11th, 2018, the board created an advisory committee to review the board's policy for compensation for board members and its policy for expense reimbursement for board members, and these are called the policies, pertaining to the types of activities that are deemed to be official duties performed at the request of the board. And we've also called these pre-approved activities. The advisory committee subsequently conducted 2 meetings with the general manager and general counsel, provided conceptual and specific input on the policies, and requested the general manager to draft and present proposed revised policies to the board for possible adoption. Additionally, staff is recommending minor modifications to the current expense reimbursement policy for travel, lodging, and meals to remove obsolete references and to simplify the administration of the policy. At the July 12th board meeting, the general manager presented the proposed policies to the board for discussion, and the board set a public hearing for August 9th, this evening, to consider the potential amendments to the policies and authorize staff to provide the required notice of the public hearing. The district published a notice in the Tri-City Voice on July 24th and July 31st, and in the Argust on July 27th and August 3rd, and posted a notice of the public hearing on the district's website on July 24th. The current and proposed policies are included in the board packet, and the proposed revisions help meet the district's strategic plan goal 3.3, which is to promote financial transparency. Just a couple of additional words. As the board is aware, what the advisory committee attempted to do with these proposed revisions is to basically have the policy match what has been board practice, and to require less individual board action to approve participation in some of these activities, as well as eliminated the provision that allowed the board to ratify attendance after the fact at certain activities. And then from the staff's perspective, we did make some modifications that were not proposed by the committee to essentially update the policy to reflect what current practice is in terms of administering the policy, and to get away from having to do annual CPI adjustments and to simply use the state published guidelines for allowable expenses. So with that, the recommendation this evening is 1, conduct a public hearing to receive and hear comments on the proposed revisions to the policies, and 2, consider the adoption of an ordinance amending the policy for compensation for board members and a resolution amending the policy for expense reimbursement of board members. And just for the benefit of the public here and for the record, none of these proposed revisions impact the compensation amount that board members receive for attendance at certain meetings and other functions, and nor does the proposals change the number of allowable meetings per month that members can attend. So it really is simply clarification of what the board's practice has been, and also improved transparency in terms of making sure that the policy is as clear as possible. So with that, that's my presentation.
Okay. Before we have any board discussion, I'd like to ask if there's anyone in the audience who would like to address the issue. If so, please state your name and address. Mr. Lemos? You are the public tonight.
Yeah, more than once. Anyway, my name is Greg Lemos. I live in Newark. And my comment is, I don't know much about, you know, those things you just talked about. A little bit I did know is that if you were assigned to go someplace to a meeting or a conference or whatever, you were paid a per diem, and there was either a limit or not a limit. As far as, you know, taking time to address this, really, well, it kind of surprised me a little bit, because I thought everybody had an idea what you get compensated for. You know, you go to a conference or whatever, you get paid to go to the conference, and per mile and per diem for as far as eating, or if you're going to stay overnight, your hotel and so forth and so on. But to bring it up like this and put it actually on paper and make it official, I just, you know, I know it's transparency, but like I said before, the public doesn't really have much to do with that. All they want to do is get their bills down. You know what I mean? You know, all this little stuff to them, at least a few that I've talked with, they say, yeah, that's just another ploy for them to get more money, and they don't really. Well, actually, they don't really know what's going on here, and it surprises me for that too. My fellow citizens are sitting back, and all they worry about is what in their life, what's going on. So that's all I have to say. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Lemos. Okay, so I'll open it up to board questions of staff, if there are any.
Yeah. We've attempted to try and identify each of the many opportunities we have as board members to learn something about the water industry, and yet there are always some that come and pop up. It strikes me, have we eliminated the catch-all, or the one which could say if it doesn't fit into the top, if it meets certain criteria, that under the discretion of the board president or vice president, that it could be qualified. And having been on the committee, it's somewhat awkward to make that question at this point. But if you all could quickly explain, I think to my benefit and everyone else, what the understanding is for those that may not quite fit into the list that's here.
Director Weed, let me just clarify for the audience real quick that as incoming president of the board last December, we appointed an ad hoc committee which to review.
And I was on that.
Right. Composed of you and Director Gunther, to review the types of meetings that we are compensated for, and to speed up the process so that we didn't have, we're not going through ratifications at meetings and things like that.
Right.
And so I...
Go ahead.
Yeah, so the effort was, in my opinion, to help clarify the types of meetings that we are permitted to attend to, not to increase compensation and nor to increase the number of meetings that board members may attend.
Agreed. And we wanted to simplify the process of approval and not have as many special items showing up on our agenda, which is complex and complicated. And we have a much more extensive list of entities that we are associated with and which provide valued input. It struck me yesterday I had an invitation to attend as a board member the Farm Bureau. Farm Bureau is not on the list. Therefore, I assume that the Farm Bureau, I don't know what to assume. Is there a catch-all that talks about something of that nature, or are we now more rigid in our review?
So, one element of the policy which kind of carries over from the previous version is that the board president and vice president have more latitude in terms of representing the district as a board officer than the other directors do. And the policy allows for other directors to attend in the event that the board president or vice president are not available, as long as they inform the general manager that they're fine with another director attending in their place. So that gives a lot of flexibility to the board officers, but the policy stipulates that they're representing the district. So if you go attend any of these things in that role, you have to be, in my view, very specific that you are representing the Alameda County Water District as a board officer. So that's one aspect in which the current proposed policy still maintains a certain amount of flexibility. So in the case of the Farm Bureau, because it's not on either of the two pre-approved lists, it wouldn't be eligible unless a board officer should attend to represent the district in an officer capacity. And if that's the case, and none of the officers are available to attend, then another director can attend in that role.
Right. Well, thank you for the clarification, because it's one that just popped up as, coincidentally as of yesterday, and it's an annual thing that they do. And it would not be compensated under this policy, which I am not objecting to, but merely seeking the clarification of how we're going to approach under this policy.
Right. And then the other interesting aspect of the new proposed policy is it does have the two separate lists. There's one list of organizations that it's just assumed that district business or district interest will be, sort of being discussed in those venues, and they're pre-approved. It's like Association of California Water Agencies, American Water Works Association, and those kind of issues. There's a second list in which it's pre-approved as long as water policy or issues that could impact the district are being dealt with in those venues. So it's kind of up to the director to ensure that if they do attend that and that it's appropriate for them to be compensated in that respect. So it does give, in my view, directors more flexibility, but also more responsibility to make sure that you're complying with the policy.
If I may just insert something real quick here. It's a little bit of history. Members of the public might wonder why in the world do directors on the water board get an invitation to the Alameda County Farm Bureau? And this goes right back to the roots of the agency. Most of the founders on our first row and second row, even into the third row, were active members of the Alameda County Farm Bureau, and Mr. Shin and Mr. Patterson were key board members of that Farm Bureau. Mr. Shin, I believe, was the president of the Alameda County Farm Bureau for like 35 years. And so our roots as an agricultural community tie directly into our service as a water district, and that's why it comes up. And I just have my invitation here right now, too. Even if I have to pay for it myself, it's worth going to.
Well, you don't pay, you're a guest.
Right.
If you have a guest, you'll have to pay for that.
Right, yeah. So just thought I'd throw in that little bit of history here.
And just one other option for the directors, if it's not on these pre-approved list, is for the directors, depending on the timing, to notify the general manager of something that's coming up. Then it would be put on the agenda for the board to approve in advance of whatever the attendance of that meeting is. That's, by the way, the default when things aren't on the list, is you need to get approval before the actual event.
So, I'll finish my comment with saying that we've reviewed this several times. Each time it improves, and I suspect we'll be back again to making additional improvements based on our experiences.
Any other director comments here?
I don't have questions, but I do have comments, if it's appropriate.
Yes?
Well, you heard this before, same as in July. I am perfectly in support for all the clarifications. I am perfectly in support for eliminating the provision to do post-attendance ratification. But I still have problem with expanding with the two lists. I understand it's characterized as a formalizing our current practice, but in essence, it's an expansion of a pre-approved list of events that may or may not have nexus to what the water district is doing. I'm still of the thought that if a director believes that attending these meetings are very important and has a nexus to ACWD's business, we should be able to ask the general manager to agendize the item and explain to the public why it is important. I understand there are certain amount of staff time and effort is required, but these items are fairly standardized. It will just have to have a small increment of time on top of the agenda package process from the general manager's office. In exchange, I believe there will be a lot more transparency for our public, and I believe that is how we should proceed with this item. We are being paid by the public to attend this. And not to belabor the issue, the Farm Bureau invitation is an invitation to a barbecue. There is no reason why our customers should be paying me to go have a barbecue for free. So that's my thought. Unless this item is modified to take out the two separate lists and the expansion of the list, I will not be supporting it.
Director Akbari?
Well, I don't really have any additional comments to other than what I've already stated previously. I think, I'm in support of these clarifications and both lists. I think they're pretty comprehensive on a lot of the meetings that we already attend, and I think pretty much all of these, any meetings that I've gone to at any of the pre-approved organizations, they have had a direct nexus with some of the work that we've been doing at ACWD, and so that's why I'm comfortable with how the list stands today.
Director Gunther?
Well, I had the advantage of being on the committee, so I support the list. I do, though, want to... Basically, I don't see this as being a problem today. And it's a move to prevent a problem tomorrow. It doesn't increase the number of meetings we get paid for or that amount. Realistically, it's not a lot of money we're talking about per meeting. I think we're $175 and we max out at 10 a month or something. I don't know if I've ever maxed out. So it's not huge dollars. But it's not why we do this. We don't do this to make money. However, there are valuable meetings to go to, and I think it's valuable having a preset identification of things that, yes, that we would be compensated for those. And there's the others that really there should be something to do with the water district to go there. I don't feel it's been a problem yet. But there's always tomorrow. And you look around,
you get up in certain levels of government, and yeah, I got problems with where some of those folks are attending, whether they're using their campaign money or whatever, for trips to Hawaii, trips to Europe. Of course, that was using campaign funds. Yeah, like your campaign's got something to do with Hawaii and you represent California, the state. We don't have that problem right now. We're trying to stop it. We're trying to prevent it. The public recently, fairly recently, I think, expressed to us they weren't necessarily happy with how certain things were going here. And I think we're trying to set the path so that this is what your directors will get compensated for, and it's for things that are appropriate for what we do. Is this list perfect? The answer is absolutely not. Tomorrow, I mean, we live in Silicon Valley. What was it, 10 years ago? Was Facebook across the river? I don't think so. Or across the bay? I don't think so. Did anybody know that was going to happen? The answer is no. So 10 years from 5 years from now, this list could be completely obsolete. And 5 years from now, if that's the case, then we can modify it. It's set up by the board for board rules. If we don't like it, we could fix it. We could tweak it. That's why we're here. I'm happy with where it is. Like I said, I was one of the committee members. We have not increased the number of meetings, nor have we increased the amount of compensation. All that we've done is tried to identify a little bit better what those meetings really are. Some items I think directors have differences of opinion on. That's five. That's fine. That's why there's 5 of us. But you know, I think we've come up with a pretty good list, and I'm very supportive of it. Thank you.
All right, some brief comments.
One other item.
Oh, yeah.
You still have to report out if you go to one of these things. So even if you go to one of these things, you still have to report out that you went there in the meeting to the public. I think we can't lose sight of that.
Right.
So that's it. Sorry.
So I think as a team, our board has been trying to come up with certain actions to make our board meetings a little bit more efficient for the public. We used to have two monthly board meetings in the past, and we reduced it down to 1, and some of these meetings have become quite lengthy, going from 6 o'clock sometimes up to midnight. And so I see this as just one more measure of trying to bring efficiency to a public meeting. And I endorse the recommendations of the ad hoc committee that were made, and will support them. I will also note, just personally, I have made it a practice never to accept any gifts while in public office, and I never have. There are occasions where we do have invitations, like Director Huang is mentioning, a barbecue, but I go out to all types of public venues where I'm presenting to Rotary or Kiwanis or Lions Club or Senior Citizens Commission. I'm making presentations at the library, whatever it may be. I am trying to reach out to the public on behalf of the board to inform people about the issues that we're facing as a community with respect to water. And in reference, and I'm just going to pick as an example, the Alameda County Farm Bureau invitation. Yes, it is a barbecue, but it's also an opportunity equal in some measure to when I attend the Alameda County Special Districts Association morning breakfast. We as board members at those moments are speaking with other public elected officials, informing them about what is going on with our district, and also providing a listening ear to things that are are being discussed around the community. So I find those extremely valuable opportunities where I feel I'm rewarding back to our community on the information I'm learning, things that I am able to discuss at these opportunities. So it's just a different perspective. I respect Director Huang's perspective as well on this, but it's just a little bit of a difference of opinion.
It definitely is a difference of opinion, and I actually enjoy going to Farm Bureau's barbecue without being compensated, because I do enjoy the conversation. I do enjoy talking to the different elected officials and our customers. I actually talked to the few renters that's remaining in our district about their issues. But I guess my point is, and this is where the departure in philosophy is, that for things like that, where we receive fringe benefits such as a free dinner, maybe we should be willing to go and listen and talk to people without being compensated. And once again, it's a philosophical difference. That's it.
Okay. Is there any other input from staff here? None from the public? Okay. So I'm going to move to close the public hearing. Is that acceptable to the board? So we'll close the public hearing, and would a director like to make a motion to approve the staff recommendation here?
I'll move to approve staff recommendation.
I'll second.
And just to clarify, the staff recommendation deals with one, an ordinance to amend the policy for board member compensation, and two, a resolution to amend the policy for board member expense reimbursement. So it includes both those actions. the
Yes.
ordinance and the resolution.
So taking note of both of those items, under your motion and
Right.
second right now, would the board secretary take the roll?
Sure. Directors Gunther,
Aye.
Akbari,
Aye.
Huang,
No.
Lee,
Aye.
and Sethy.
Aye. Okay, we'll move on from the public hearing on board compensation to item 5.7, a resolution nominating an ACWD board member as the independent special district alternate member for the countywide redevelopment oversight board. And I just want to note quickly for staff, I asked for a clarification from the county auditors, or the county auditor, when I was up there in Oakland last week, and they formally are now calling this the Alameda County Countywide Oversight Board. They have dropped the usage of the word redevelopment because it covers more than redevelopment. And I am the appointee by all of the special districts in the county of Alameda to be their representative. There is an alternate position open, and that's why we're having this discussion this evening.
Okay, so the board's aware of most of this information, but I'll just summarize really quickly. In September 2015, Governor Brown signed SB 107, a bill which required the consolidation of redevelopment agency oversight boards by July 1st, 2018. Upon consolidation, there'd be a new single countywide oversight board now in each county. Accordingly, the existing 10 redevelopment agency oversight boards in Alameda County will be consolidated into one countywide oversight board, and this is happening all over the state. The Independent Special District Selection Committee is responsible to make appointments of the one Independent Special District regular member, and that is President Sethy now, and one Special District designated alternate to serve. On July 11th, as I mentioned, President Sethy was selected. However, an alternate representative was not selected due to lack of submissions. Therefore, LAFCO is calling a meeting of the Independent Special District Selection Committee on Wednesday, September 12th at Zone 7 to address that issue. And nominees must be members of the legislative bodies of the independent special districts that are eligible to receive property tax distributions, and ACWD is eligible. So the district is required to submit one candidate nomination, assuming there is one from ACWD, and two, the name of the presiding officer or designee if that presiding officer cannot attend, who will be voting at the September 12th election by Monday, August 27th. Additionally, the district is required to submit a board resolution for its nominee as applicable, again, assuming there is one, and a notification of the nomination to the presiding officers of the other districts before September 12th, and staff would take care of that should the district propose a nominee. So the recommendation is by motion, select the designee who will attend the Independent Special District Selection Committee election meeting in the event that President Sethy cannot attend, and vote on behalf of the Alameda County Water District for the Independent Special District designated alternate on the Countywide Oversight Board. And two, consider adopting a resolution nominating an ACWD board member for the Countywide Oversight Board alternate member position, should that be appropriate. And staff is available to respond to any questions, and we definitely want to select an alternate this evening to vote, and then the question for the board is whether there's an alternate that is interested in serving on the Countywide Oversight Board. So hopefully that makes sense. There's a lot of moving parts to this discussion, as the board is aware.
So, in trying to expedite things here, may I ask if there's a board member interested in serving as the alternate?
I would be interested in serving as the alternate.
Is there anyone else? Okay. How do we formally appoint or submit Director Weed's name for?
So that would be the second action that's recommended, and there's a resolution in your packet with a blank, and the blank would be filled in by Director Weed if the board chooses to do it. So the action would be to approve the resolution nominating Director Weed as the alternate.
Okay. Allow me to make the motion to approve the resolution with Director Weed as the alternate member to the Alameda County Countywide Oversight Board.
I'll second.
We'll have
Thank you.
a name to be submitted on September 12th at the Alameda County Special Districts Association meeting.
Is it the 12th?
So the meeting itself is on Wednesday, September 12th at 9:30 a.m.
Right.
at the Zone 7
Thank you.
headquarters.
Right, thank you.
Okay. So is there a second to my motion? All right. Second by Director Gunther. Can we call the roll?
Sure. Directors Gunther?
Aye.
Akbari?
Aye.
Huang?
Aye.
Lee?
Aye.
And Sethy?
Aye. So just to be clear, there may be other alternates from other special agency, special districts that are recommended at that meeting, and it will be an election of all the special districts for that appointment. All right.
President Sethy?
Yeah.
The one thing we also want to take care of this evening is make sure that the board has a designee that will attend and vote on behalf of the district should you not be able to attend. And
I will be there.
Okay. They are asking for that information. So last time we had Director Gunther is on hold should that become necessary. I think it would, if it's the board's pleasure to go in that direction with Vice President, I would like to be responsive to LAFCO's request and submit an alternate, but that's why we suggested by motion select the designee who will attend in the event that you cannot.
Well, I plan to be there. Director
Right.
Weed is going to be there.
Right.
Doesn't that suffice?
I would recommend, I may not be able to go that day anyway, can we direct?
Sure, the
Weed
board,
as the,
I think the board can select any of its members to be that designee. And so Director Weed, if you do not attend, will be there to represent himself.
Which John does very well.
So that's fine. I just wanted to point out that we used a different approach last time, and I think the board should probably take a vote on that by motion. So somebody has to make the motion.
I will make a motion that we would identify Director Weed in the event Director Sethy cannot attend to vote for this district.
I'll second.
Directors Gunther,
Aye?
Akbari,
Aye.
Huang,
Aye.
Weed,
All right.
and Sethy.
Aye.
Thank you.
All right. So we got that clarified. And then lastly, on this item, I was informed, and I copied the general manager and our district secretary, that the very first meeting of the Alameda County County-wide Oversight Board will occur on Monday, September 24th at 4 p.m. in the afternoon at the county auditor's offices up in Oakland. And we will be formally sworn in at that occasion. It's all elected members from different parts of the county, and we have action items that are coming up at that very first meeting. It's September 24th, 4 p.m. at the county auditor's office. All right, so we'll move on to reports. First is item 6.1, board committee reports. Are there any items that directors would like to discuss? I have two. Anybody? Okay. So under the Engineering and Information Technology Committee meeting of July 11th, I was reviewing the minutes, and there were two things that I wanted to comment on. First is a staff compliment. I had put forward a list back in December of all of the various districts around California that had either considered implementation of AMI, were in the stages of evaluating, or had already implemented. And through many meetings, I have been encouraging staff to do the market research on what all of these different cities and communities have been doing, and what their choice selection was on whether to go with a fixed wireless system, proprietary system, or with the cellular type implementation. Reading through that market research, I learned a lot. I really did. It gave me a whole new perspective on what everybody's doing between fixed and cellular, and I have a much better appreciation right now for the kind of choices we're going to be looking at. And even though I've stated I have a bias toward a cellular implementation, the market research really opened up my mind, and I just wanted to state that I really appreciated all of that market research that staff did. That was tremendous. Really good quality information. Yeah, Ben Egger, he did, and I'm sure a lot of other people contributed to that. Okay, number two, there was a discussion of the Canyon Heights tank, and I communicated with Mr. Stevenson on this. I was, we've got over $100 million budget, $120 million budget, so you can overlook these things, but the tank project in our budget for 2017-18 was originally budgeted for a little less than $300,000, and from the committee report, I noted that it was now rising up to $350,000 to $400,000. which could be about a 25-30% increase over what we had budgeted for. And also, we have the Mission San Jose water treatment plant tank, which is up above $600,000. So we're talking a combined expenditure of $1 million. And I just wanted to note this for the full board, that we not try to let these costs run away from us right now on these two tank projects. And maybe Mr. Stevenson would like to comment, because he had my input earlier.
Yeah, sure. I appreciate the comment. You're right. What's noted in the notes is a projected, or at least the engineer's estimate for construction costs for Kenyon Heights tank to be between $350,000 and $400,000. And you're right also that that's greater than the line item budget from last fiscal year 17-18 for that tank project. So, but what I wanted to make sure that is clear is that staff has combined the Kenyon Heights tank recoating and cathodic protection project, which was the $299, together with a PLC replacement for the tank. So the $350,000 to $400,000 estimate is essentially a combination of two project elements. So that combined project has gone out to bid today. So we'll see what construction cost estimates we get back, the bids that we get back from that project. But if we award that project, it'll include both the coating and cathodic protection work and the PLC replacement work together in one project.
And may I ask what the life expectancy is of that completed work?
So both on the order of about 15 years. The existing coating, which we're replacing, was installed in 2000, so it's given us a little over 15 years of life. We're hopeful that the new coating system and cathodic protection system will outlive the last one, given improvements in coating technologies and application. And then the PLCs, the board has heard reports in the past about the generally expected life expectancy for PLCs being on the order of 15 years. However, this agency has managed to do a pretty good job about extending that life beyond the 15 years too. So 15 years would be sort of the expected lifetime, but we've been able to extend those lifetimes beyond that in the past.
And the last question I had was, are there any seismic improvements that are required to this tank because it's right along the Hayward Fault?
No, it's a relatively new tank. It was built in 2000. The tank was completely replaced and was seismically upgraded at that time. There are tank site improvements being included in this work, though. There are certain worker safety improvements. There's some safety railing and tie downs and things like that included in the project. There's also some emergency backup power provisions being included. So there are other elements to the project than just coating work and cathodic protection and PLC work. But that's the bulk of that's the core construction work that's to happen.
Okay, good. I'm hoping that on both tank projects we're able to stay within the guidelines of our budgeted numbers.
Sure, yeah.
Okay, moving on to 6.2 operational reports.
I just have a quick follow-up
Yeah.
on one. Oh, please.
Yes, please. I'm sorry if I didn't ask for public input there. We don't usually get it.
I know, I generally don't, but as you were talking, actually, I think Mr. Stevenson and I think Ms. Sethy, you saw some work being done on Paseo Padre, and they were working with a sleeve that goes into the pipe, and I was just wondering about how that came about, because I know USD is using it in their sewage system. Oakland, or at least the East Bay Mud Company, they're using it, and I was just wondering if we are going to use it, and if we do, is it going to save us any money? What happened?
Mr. Lemos, this doesn't really have anything to do with the topic that we're talking about right now.
Well,
Can
it
I
says
ask that-
engineering.
Yeah, so can I ask that the staff reply back to you on that subject?
Sure,
Yeah.
whenever.
Well,
Email me.
there's a lot to talk
He has
about
my email.
on that.
Thank you.
We'll fill you all the way in, okay? right.
Follow-up
Director
comment
Weed.
on the AMI, and you were referring to the minutes of the July 11th meeting. We had another meeting yesterday of the same committee with an update and further expansion of these comments. And I encourage you to review those documents, because you come away with the realization that this is a rapidly evolving and advancing technology, and we're now looking as well with PG&E at using yet another approach toward achieving the same goal. So it's one of those things. My concern, this is a 20-year commitment for what might be 2-year to 3-year technology. I will look forward to that. I think what I appreciated most was seeing that our staff is looking at all of the options and doing a healthy examination of everything that's out there. That, to me, is the most important thing. We're not the technology experts. I might say I am, but but as a board, we're not. And we have to leave it to staff. So what I expect of the staff is that they look at all of the technology options and help give us a good business case in the end.
Okay.
All right, so are there any operational reports that directors would like to discuss?
If I may, President Sethy, Mr. Peterson has updated information for 6.2.5.
Yes, thank you, Mr. Shaver. The ACWD distribution system hardness map for July 2018 had a typo in the legend that's in the top left-hand corner. It incorrectly showed the average production out of the blending facility at 43.5 million gallons a day. That certainly would have been a pre-drought production number. The corrected number is 17.3. So it was a data entry error, and it's since been corrected.
Mr. Peterson, thank you. This is a good segue into both 6.2.4 and 6.2.5. So I communicated with Mr. Peterson earlier today because I noted what I thought was an error here on the hardness map, but I also had a question which I thought the board might want to just listen to. We had a on page 107 of our board packet, there is a chart there which shows our well production for the above Hayward Fault. And our well production was significantly higher in May and June over last year. At the same time, our mix of San Francisco water at our blending facility was quite a bit down. And so what I was noting was that the hardness of the water, as I've expressed in past meetings, has been getting quite high, and it's getting near the limits of what we would consider tolerable within the district, and it's over twice what it is for Newark and most of Fremont. And so I'm a little concerned. I've been saying this for a while, that the hardness of the water is getting too hard in Union City, and I, just speaking for myself as a director, would be willing to invest more money, pay more money to blend more San Francisco water to soften down the groundwater if we have a chance. So that's the subject that I brought up with Mr. Peterson. And I'll open it for board discussion.
Speaking as someone who is receiving hard water in Ardenwood, I can look at my hardness actually has gone up. As much as I would love to have softer water, we are looking potentially at a rate increase. Well, I know we're looking at a rate increase. So now the question is, do we want to spend that extra money to make the water softer? I would say personally, no. As much as I would love soft water and not have to actually use toilet bowl cleaner to get the scale off my shower. At this point in time, I don't think it's wise for us to spend that additional money to soften the water.
Well, I believe it is. So we've got
It's a philosophical thing,
we've
right?
got two different points of view here. I believe a lot of our customers would, for a little bit of
Mr. Shaver,
extra
I could
cost.
add some information. Actually, there were two things happening. The map that I just handed out to you on hardness, it was an error I found yesterday in reviewing the board agenda package. So you have the corrected map in front of you. When I received your email today, I incorrectly thought it was the error that I discovered yesterday. So now listening to you, I understand better what your question was. It wasn't about the hardness map. It was about the differences in above the Hayward Fault production levels from last year to this year. The reason for the difference is we wanted to bring down the above Hayward Fault groundwater levels to allow for the construction of the fishway for rubber dam number 3. So we have been concentrating on above Hayward Fault PT Wellfield, which in contrast last year we had a different set of criteria where we needed to bring down the groundwater basin below the Hayward Fault because it was so high. So depending upon the operational situation we have and what we're trying to do to accommodate and minimize the cost with our capital project this summer. So that's the reason why the radical difference between last year and this year.
Okay.
Okay, so I misunderstood. I thought it was, your concern was because you talked about hardness, so, and I knew I had an error in that map yesterday, so I thought that was what you were referring to, and in fact, it was about the production levels.
I was referring to multiple subjects in one email, and that's why it got a little confusing.
Okay.
But let me just speak to the broader concern, which is that the hardness of the water in Union City is getting near the top of our tolerable limits for the community, and more than twice the hardness of the rest of Fremont and Newark. That's what concerns me. And so the broader question for me, as I put in my final sentence on the email, was what is there the opportunity to blend in more San Francisco water to provide a better quality of water to our community?
The technical answer to that is we use more San Francisco water to blend with our harder groundwater. So we can physically do it on a technical basis, and we have established guidelines that we try to target between 135 and 165. So generally speaking, unless there's an operational problem, we do a very good job of meeting that criteria. So if the board would wish to change the criteria, then that would be something that the board would have to discuss and direct staff accordingly.
Actually, that brings an interesting question. What I am willing to entertain is for staff to bring it back to see what's the cost if we change the criteria, because right now is a criteria that the board as a whole actually agreed on, this target range. So I am definitely willing to entertain if we lower narrow down the target, I guess, lower the hardness, how much it would cost addition per increment, and what's the rate impact. I think that would be a good starting point for the discussion, because right now I am just guessing. So I'm definitely willing to entertain that. I would love to have soft water, but to what cost would be the question.
I do know that we have an IRP discussion in the coming future. I don't know exactly when we're going to revisit that with our entire portfolio of water supply. And perhaps, Stephen, I don't want to put you on the spot, but perhaps you could address what the timeline is on looking at water supply and the integrated resources planning horizon.
In our recently completed strategic plan, we had the IRP scheduled to begin in 2021. It sounds like the board wants something a little sooner than that to discuss this particular topic. So if the board would like that, staff will endeavor to put that together.
So, you know, there's kind of like 3 issues associated with this. There's water quality, there's cost, and water supply. Because when you change how you're using your supply portfolio, it can impact the district's ability to deal with extended droughts and those kind of issues. That is a long conversation. What we can do as part of the financial workshop series, and this would be my recommendation, is just do a little bit of analysis to see, all right, you know, if we kind of change that target hardness over, say, a year or 2 planning horizon, sort of like the budget, what would be the potential financial ramifications, just so that it provides the board a little bit of additional information on the sort of the variability issues that you're thinking about, and then kind of keep the strategic plan framework as is.
Okay.
Which I think would at least start that conversation and also give you an idea of what the sensitivity of cost is relative to hardness. So almost like a little quick graph we can provide you.
Right.
And I think that would make sense as part of our financial planning, because we're talking about over the next year or 2, and, you know, policy impacts costs. And so I'm looking at Mr. Wunderlich and Mr. Peterson and Mr. Inn, that they will put their heads together and figure out how we're going to do this.
Right. So I just did some quick math, and assuming I did my quick math correctly, each 1 million gallons per day of SFPUC water, if you were to take that amount per day over the course of the year, would cost the district about $2 million.
So what we can do is take a look at that, and there's 1 million gallons per day, but what does that get you in terms of hardness?
Right.
And sort of we can come up with a way to present that sort of quick and dirty analysis to the board to see if you might want to make any short-term adjustments. The policy discussion is just longer. Yeah. And since we recently completed the strategic plan, like to kind of keep that document valid for a while. Yeah. So that's what I would propose, to just to give you a little bit of additional information.
2 points. Is not our contractual requirement to purchase approximately 7 million MGD from San Francisco on average? We don't have to purchase, we can schedule those purchases. And second, that the quality of the water from San Francisco varies significantly depending on where they're drawing the water from, whether it's Hetch Hetchy or from one of the local water runoff.
Yes, that is correct. Our minimum purchase amount is 7.6 million gallons a day, and our maximum contractual amount is 13.6, or in that range.
Yeah,
But
so,
that's
so
not
the
practical.
analysis that we would provide would be sort of like on average, because if they do change their source of supply to local, that water is no longer that soft. Again, what I'm encouraging is that we just kind of give you an order of magnitude just to see if you want to make any adjustments in the short term until we kind of do a reboot of the whole IRP.
Well, what's informative here in this presentation was that these higher, the difficulty with the hardness in Union City over this last report was based on the need to draw, we're working in the creek.
Right.
If there's ever a way to get out of the creek entirely, that would be a wonderful objective.
I had a feeling you were going to bring that up. Director Gunther, since you live in Union City, any comments here?
Actually, I do have some comments. I've been here a while, and I used to live in northern Fremont and southern Fremont, and back to Union City, and but I would love Union City. But our water's hard. Northern Fremont is hard. It's not just Union City. It is northern Fremont. It's Niles, Ardenwood. But it's a lot better than what it was. The district has done a tremendous job getting our hardness levels down. There's been, it's interesting this came up because I just like 2 days ago commented on a what do they call that thing? A neighborhood, not the neighborhood watch. Next door. Somebody was asking about buying a water softener. What one did they recommend? And so I was looking at the comments, and oh, I got this one, I got this one, I got this one, and there's this comment from another guy, you don't need it. And then you go down and say, oh, this one here, oh, I absolutely, positively have to have it. I used to live in Hayward. Okay, I'm not going to argue with Hayward's San Francisco water. Have at it. Does probably taste better, maybe. I don't know, I can't taste difference. I grew up with well water in Connecticut. I joke about chipping the water off here, you know, and in my sand. Well, we did have chipping the water off the bottom of our tea kettle. That's our supply we had. On the fish tanks, you could see a band around the top. We're not at that level anymore here. And I'm fine with trying to make the water in Union City softer, but I want to commend the staff for what they've done. I know we've done improvements in the distribution system. They've done a terrific job. But now we got another problem on our hands, and that's public perception. We got all these people running these water softeners out there. Some of them, they've been living here for years, and the quality has changed significantly since then. I think the numbers used to be in the 200s, if I'm not mistaken.
Yes, they were.
And so I look at 160, and yeah, I'm not upset. It's like, hey, it's not 200 something. I can put that hammer away for a while. But that was my comment back too on the next door, was really, you know, it's gotten better. It's not where it was. It's a matter really of taste. You know, I'm not really 100% certain. I mean, yeah, there's this, you still get a little scaling, I guess, if you wash your car and stuff, but that maybe, I don't know, is that would that be affected also by the chemicals that we have to put in the water to leach out to protect the pipes? Would they cause some degree of scaling? Just out of curiosity, this stuff, where is that?
Well, that's something different. Of course, the calcium in the water that gives the hardness is part of the evaluation of the corrosion of the corrosivity of the water.
Okay. So I guess from my point of view, sure. Appreciate your concern. I remember when the numbers were in the 200, and this is something I was a big advocate of when I first got on the board. but we've made tremendous efforts and tremendous strides to get where we are today. I think we should always continue to try to improve. But as we improve, we're going to have a messaging issue we need to get out over there, in particular, to all these homes that people have bought, that were built in the 70s, they got their water softener, they're running it. A lot of these people think they really need it. My brother in Connecticut needs it. Slidell, Louisiana, and their sulfur water, they need it. Did we need it in Connecticut? We loved our water in Connecticut, even though we had to chip it off on a hammer. It was well water, tasted great, but it was hard. So, I think chloramines or chlorine, water taste is subjective. And so I appreciate all the efforts to lower the hardness in Union City. They're greatly appreciated. But I think we really need to commend, too, where we are, what we've done, and message that, too, in that I see these people going out and buying these water softeners, and they're spending lots of money. And it's like, well, look, if you don't like the taste, that's one thing, but I don't really know if it makes that much of a difference. I do the dishes in my house, and I don't know, I think it suds up just fine for me. But that's me, it's personal opinion. Sure, I got a lot of residents in Union City are going to stone my house tonight because, but if we could do something, great. But then again, if it means our costs are going to go up 10%, I just say, you know what, I'll live with what I got. Nice to look at it, though, and just check it out.
Just to add to what Director Gunther is saying, since I grew up right here in the community, I do remember the day when, all the way up until I was went to college, I was responsible for the water softener in the garage, and every supermarket in town outside, you would just find stacks of 50-pound bags of rock salt to put in your water softener. And that's the way our community was, because the water was so hard. I mean, literally every supermarket outside was stacked with rock salt.
And I think we've made tremendous strides in the city of Newark with putting the desal plant online. So we made great efforts and great advances. I mean, this chart is terrific. We got one pink. I'm thrilled to death, one pink. We've actually had green in Union City. That's exciting.
Well, I didn't mean to open up a Pandora's box here, but I was trying to ask a very simple question. Is there any way to reduce the hardness by mixing in more, blending in more San Francisco water? So I'm glad to hear we're going to take some looks at that. All right. Any other comments on operational reports? Seeing none. Can we move on to the staff presentation?
Sure, thank you. The staff felt that this would be a good time to provide a quick review of website design and how we're proceeding on that, and Ms. Heides will introduce this item.
Thank you, Mr. Shaver. I'll keep this short because I know everyone is anxiously awaiting seeing what the new website will look like. So I'm going to go ahead and turn it over to Shireen Gonzalez, our Senior Public Affairs Specialist, to unveil that for you.
Thank you, Laura. Good evening, board. Good evening, staff, and member of the public. I'm happy to be here tonight to unveil to you a sneak peek of our website redesign and a review of our design images. So they are just draft and we'll be seeking your input, but really happy to be part of this project, recognizing that our website is a great communication tool for our customers. In fact, to date, since the beginning of this year, we've had over 160,000 visits to our website. So we know a lot of folks are using it as a resource. A little bit about the project timeline and key dates. We've been working internally with a committee, a representative from each department, and that took place in March. In June, Laura did provide you with a board presentation and giving you a blueprint or layout of the design, which we'll be seeing tonight. I'm here this evening to give you a first round of review and seek your feedback. I would ask if you could provide comments to me by August 15th so that we can continue meeting our deadline of August 24th with the complete design. And then December 17th is when we would launch and go live, if all goes well, as we anticipate that it will. A little bit of project overview. We are updating not only our website look and feel, but the platform. So this will increase the ease and functionality for both the front and back end user. And as a website administrator, I'm really looking forward to those increased options. We're also looking to streamline the look and feel, make it simple, clean, easy to use and navigate, reduce the text and have some nice photos, and really just ease of use for our customers. We've had our current website in place for a long time, and we have some lessons learned. It will also be mobile responsive, recognizing that a great majority of folks are on the go and looking for ways to access the website on mobile devices, as well as being ADA compliant for individuals with visual impairments. Back in June, this was the blueprint or grayscale outline that you had a chance to view, as well as our color scheme. And so tonight you'll see how we took that and we translated the information that we gathered from multiple sources to create the design. We've been working internally, as I said, as a team, and looked at several agencies. We conducted a survey, both internal and external. So it was posted on our website. We asked for customer feedback. How do you use the website? Information that could be helpful. Do you like the look and feel? If you have trouble finding information. We also had a survey for staff as well to seek feedback. We got comments from the board, and then we also looked at other agencies to see how similar agencies or utilities are using their website and the type of information that is listed there. We worked with Civic Plus to follow industry standards and best practices, and I think we came up with a great plan. A couple of items that I wanted to touch on as a follow-up from the June 14th board meeting to address, and that we did incorporate into the website design. A question came up regarding emergency alerts, and I would like to note that emergency alerts are currently available on the website, and they'll continue to be available on the new website. We just don't see them because luckily we haven't had a need for an emergency alert, but it will be available should we need it. Additionally, an option for a live feed module. So in the event that we decide to live stream our meetings in the future, we do have that ability for an upgrade. Excuse me, not an upgrade, but a module addition. Recognizing that we have a diverse community, Google Translates will be enabled on the new website design as well, so folks can access the material and the language in which they prefer. And then lastly, calendar links. This is a new feature that will be on our homepage, and it will link directly to agenda items. Again, the thought is we want to make sure that the end user can find the information quickly and easily. I thought before we do the big reveal, we would get a chance to just remind ourselves our current website. It has been in place since 2012. It has certainly served us well, but we're ready for a new look and feel and improved usability. So with that, I'm going to go ahead and show you the new website. I would like to apologize. It's very small on the screen. We're working with a JPEG image, so it's not live. We're not able to click around and see how it works. But Andy will distribute screenshots or images for your review. Excuse me while I turn around. I just want to make sure that I can point it out to you. And this is the new website. This is the home page, what it would look like. What I'm going to do is break the home page into two components, starting from reading from top to bottom, left to right. So this is our home page, and I will start here. This is our site ID, which is our logo. Anytime you're on the website, you go back to that site ID and it'll take you back to the home page. Then we have our social media buttons and the search bar here. Next we have our mega menu, and assuming that these are pretty self-explanatory and easy to follow, I'll just walk through them really quickly here. This is About Us, Services, Connect with Us, and I want to. So each time you hover over one of these buttons, the mega menu will expand, and then you'll have further options. So for example, the I want to pay my water bill. I want to learn more about water conservation. Following our mega menu, we have a picture. Here, this is a beautiful picture of Quarry Lakes, and we have the ability to change that out at any time with the new website. We also have our quick action item buttons right in the center that you see here. The quick action buttons will remain on every page as well. So these are actions that folks use frequently visiting our website. So I'll walk you through those. We have My Account and Service, Pay My Bill, recognizing the new electronic bill payment options. We know customers want a quick and easy way to visit their website to make bill payments. So Pay My Bill is a new feature. Transparency information, knowing that transparency is paramount for us. Board of Directors, this is where obviously information regarding the board and bios would be available, as well as agendas and minutes. Your Water, and lastly, job seekers. Our analytics tell us that a great majority of folks visit our website to learn more about employment opportunities and careers at the district, so we wanted to have that available as well. We have 3 quick link buckets, so to speak, where they're categorized for residents, for businesses, and then for partners. So some of the information under the 2 buckets for residents and businesses would be similar since we offer similar services, but there would be a variation. And then for partners would be for bid postings, our education programs, and then landscape partnerships and so forth.
Shireen, may I ask a question real quick?
Mm-hmm.
So if you wanted to translate this into Spanish on the home page, is there a spot there to do that, to go to Google Translate?
Yes. Let's see. I'm sorry, maybe it cut off here, but it's the Translate button is right down here. We did ask Civic Plus about that, and they said that it generally is industry standard that it's at the bottom of the page. We do have the ability to move it, should we choose. The top right here is another option where it would go, but we do have a lot of buttons there. But it does show, and on the JPEG image that I send to you, you'll be able to see it more clearly.
I have seen on a number of water district websites, primarily in Southern California, Central Valley, where it's up on the upper head, where you can just click right away. So I want Spanish right there.
Okay.
I'm with Director Sethy. I would prefer to have the translate link on the top, just knowing that our customer base.
Great feedback.
How many languages does Google Translate currently support?
That I don't know, and I'll have to find out and get back to you. So we're still on the home page here, but now we're looking at the second half. News and updates would be on the left-hand side. This is currently on our website now. And then to the right, this is a new feature here, our calendar, which is on the home page. Right now we do have a calendar feature, but it's not front and right on the home page. So this would provide a direct link to items that are on the home page. So if we have a board meeting posted here, they would be able to click here and it would go to the agenda item. So again, with the intent that the information is easy to find for our customers. Lastly, we have the footer, and the footer remains on all pages of the website as well, and it has contact information, our office hours, also goes to quick links as well.
Okay, so I have to have a question.
Yes.
I noticed there's an employee access link, so what is it?
I'm sorry?
There's a site link that says employee access. Are we providing something different on our website?
No.
Okay.
No, I'll need to check and see it.
Yeah, no, I'm just wondering, is there some new features that only benefit our customers but also benefit our employees?
There is an option through Civic Plus for like an intranet. That's not a module that we'll be using.
Okay.
Thank you for the question.
I'll go ahead and go to our interior page. So once you're on the home page, and if you move forward, then this is what the interior page would look like. Keeping in line similarly to the home page, we do have our site ID here, our mega menu here as well, and our quick action buttons. These are sub-navigation links. So for example, if you were on a customer service page, a sub-navigation link might be Help on Tap or a program within a department or division. And then we have our news highlight here, spotlight information for this page only. Our quick action buttons remain here, as well as our footer. So that's pretty much the look of the website. What I will be doing, as I mentioned, is sending out JPEG images of these that were presented to you this evening, asking if you could provide any comments or feedback to myself and Laura by the 15th. That way we can work with Civic Plus to incorporate those and then stay on track for our August 24th deadline to go live on December 17th. So with that, I will open it up to additional questions and make sure that I have those incorporated as we move forward working with Civic Plus.
I'm Googling how many languages Google Translate currently supports, and it says over 100.
Great.
So that might be all of the languages that are spoken in our service area, but maybe not. We have quite a number of languages.
Including Esperanza.
Thank you, Bob. I believe on our water quality report we have 13 languages in which we translate.
Yeah, it says 103 now, currently.
I have
Yeah, go ahead, Director Akbari.
So, one frustration that I have with a lot of websites is some of the quick link buttons are, even the text is included as a picture, so when you do go to translate the web page, it's not going to translate some of those text boxes. So I just want to make sure that the quick links are actually text boxes and are not like a JPEG or some image dropped in as a quick link.
Okay.
Oh, that's just gibberish.
That's a standard gibberish for links. I suggest you check the spelling of the quick links.
Check the language.
Shireen,
Yes?
I always forget to be more formal in public, so Ms. Gonzalez.
Yes, President Sethy.
I just want to comment that I find, from what I see here, this is quite refreshing compared to our current website, which I kind of consider a little dense. And it's not only the color, tone, and everything else, but going through a lot of different water district websites, I like the toned down colors, and it's a little bit more bright and inviting to me. That's just my first impression. So I like it.
Thank you very much.
The hardness chart's going to be on there, right?
We'll put the hardness chart on there. It's
under your water, I suppose. And the rainfall report, maybe, under your water, I guess?
Yeah, that's something that I've brought up in the past. Rainfall year-to-date in our district.
Almost real time.
Yeah. Weather report.
I like the weather report.
There are a lot of water districts, I shouldn't say a lot, but there are some out there that do put the full report on where's our groundwater, what's the the rainfall for the year, all kinds of statistics, and some are real time, and I think students find that to be a real interest, younger people.
I believe
Cool stuff.
Director Wee has a comment?
Well, I want to thank you. It's the website itself would be a significant improvement. I would encourage us as we get involved more and more in contingency planning that we look to this is a method to get more detailed information to the customers on what our response capabilities are, including tying in with the software that we'll be using ourselves for identifying where there are problems and what our schedule is for addressing them and getting service back to different areas. So there's an emergency alert, there's public information, but there's also the real-time input that could be, this could greatly take a load off our staff if one could go to the website and get the information directly.
Thank you.
Well, I just had one more comment that I really like where this stands right now. I think this is a big improvement over our current website, and yeah, I think it's great.
Thank you.
Thank you.
I have one more question, kind of feeds on what Director Weed was saying here. On our current website, if there is an emergency, you see the number on the home page. Where is that here? Am I missing it someplace?
We have the Connect with Us is what is on here now as proposed. Sorry. Oh, I turned it off. So it would be, we would have the Connect with Us would be a drop-down, report a concern, sign up for rapid alert notifications, notify me in the event that you want to subscribe to email notifications, social media, and then our contact information, and possibly an e-newsletter if we go that route in the future.
Mm-hmm.
So I know it was
I'll leave it up to staff to decide, but I like that emergency notification. I mean, that's one of the, if you can see it quickly,
this here?
For me, that's very helpful. On the City of Fremont website, if you have an emergency, you have to go through multiple layers to actually find the non-emergency police.
Mm-hmm.
Let's say you don't want to call 911, but you want to call non-emergency police for something that's going on in your neighborhood. It takes forever to get to find the right phone number, and I've gone through that experience a few times, so.
And we certainly don't want to have that frustration for our customers, so this is all really good feedback.
Yeah. I've given the City of Fremont my feedback, too.
Okay. So,
next steps, I will send a JPEG image of these and ask for your feedback. I've taken some notes and then work with Civic Plus, including proofing everything, and work with them to meet our August 24th deadline so we can continue to move forward. So thank you very much.
Good job.
Thank you.
Okay. Next is staff, beyond staff presentation, general managers reports. Does anybody desire a short break, or you just want to continue? Want to keep going? Okay, let's go for it.
okay. As the board is aware, the Alameda County Water District is required to formally respond to the Alameda County Civil Grand Jury findings and recommendations that were published in their annual report about ACWD. and we are required to submit our response before the September 26, 2018 deadline. So the plan was to share a draft response letter with the board for tonight's board meeting, and Mr. Warren is passing that out. Receive some initial feedback from the board with the idea of coming back to the board during the regular board meeting in September to hopefully have the board adopt a resolution essentially confirming that the letter is something that the board is submitting to the grand jury. I should point out that this letter is the board's letter and will be signed by the board president in your role, President Sethy. So before you, this draft letter, we strive to strike that right balance in our response to the findings and recommendations by not being overly wordy, trying to be concise, try to hit the important points that we felt the grand jury should be aware of, to not seem defensive as an agency, and to be appreciative of the work that the grand jury did to take a look at how ACWD operates as well as the challenges that we are facing as an agency. This letter was prepared by multiple staff people from different departments, as well as general counsel and the district's communications consultant, Michael Heenan. It may be tempting to incorporate more points in the letter, but I would advise the board that this is a letter that, as at least I see it, it's not about winning. It's more about just doing our job, being responsive to the grand jury, responding in the way that's required, because you either have to agree with a finding or disagree, and if you disagree, you need to say why you disagree, and do that in a concise way that's appropriate for the multiple audiences that might read our letter. But we don't want to create any more unnecessary criticism of the district, so we were trying to be concise and relatively simple. So with that, hopefully board members have had an opportunity to read the letter. Staff is standing by, waiting for your suggestions and your input. And again, the goal is to take that into account and come back with another draft letter for your consideration at the September board meeting.
So I had a chance to review this letter. It seems to have morphed a little bit since the last one I seen. I actually would disagree with some of the district's approach.
I actually didn't hear you quite clearly right now.
So I actually had a chance to review this. It actually has changed from the last generation that was shared with us. I actually do disagree with the district's approach in answering actually two of the findings. I actually agree with the grand jury's finding 18-35 that we are not sufficiently transparent. It does not say the district is not transparent. It says the district is not sufficiently transparent, right? And for me, that's the adjective is the key word. I do agree with the grand jury that we could do more. We have started down the path to be transparent. We have implemented many of the suggestions and recommendations. But remember, grand jury is looking only at one point, one snapshot in time. So I actually would probably rephrase this, saying that we agree and we have made these changes, and we started at the last rate hearing with the rates, the new rate charge and the presentation rate charge breakdown at the last rate hearing. That actually would be how I would look at it, because we are transparent, but we're not transparent, but we're not sufficiently transparent because there's more work we could do, which we have implemented, and we should take credit for that. The next one, let's see, I agree with 1836. So the next one is finding 1837, that we have provided overly generous salary and benefit to its employee over the year. This one is actually, I'm in a very top spot. I think we benchmark well with everybody else in our industry, which is where you're heading with your response. But I think overall, we're being paid really well. If you look at the compensation for, let's say, other government employees outside the water district or water industry, we're on the high side. On top of that, when other water districts and other government entities are asking their employees to give back, we not only did not hold it neutral, we fulfill our contract obligation and provide increases. So it is kind of hard to argue that we are not overly generous at that point in time. We are definitely making a lot of effort. I actually agree that our employees are extremely efficient and they should be compensated accordingly. But I think this is where the adjective comes into play again. I think within the industry we benchmark well. However, can we do better? Yes. So it's a slightly different flavor. I just don't like this really firm agree or disagree, because it really is the context that makes the difference for me.
And that's one area that is challenging, because the grand jury does provide directions in terms of how you respond to these findings and recommendations, and they're quite digital about it. They say that you either have to agree or disagree, and they don't give you a lot of latitude in between. And you can partially disagree, but you have to then identify what part exactly do you agree with and what part don't you, and that became a complicated messaging exercise as well. So what we decided was, on the first point, Director Huang, that they wrote it in present tense is not sufficiently transparent, and we decided to say, well, you know, we're looking at it at a snapshot in time too, and we're always striving to improve, and we feel that we have been more transparent than most agencies. I've reviewed a lot of Prop 218 notices, and the level of detail that we provided was as much or more than just about every agency that we compared ourselves with. So, you know, it's a matter of opinion, but it is challenging sometimes because of the way they word their finding or their recommendation.
Right. I am looking at this response and the grand jury report from a customer's point of view. Right. We provided a lot of information, hands down, totally agree. We are transparent in terms of the number we supply, the data point we supply. The problem is it was never in one spot for our customer to pull it out. We have all the numbers scattered in multiple different places, and that kind of came out in your response. That's why it's so long. We have a laundry list of things that we provided. From a customer's point of view, and probably from, I can't read their mind, but I'm going to guess from the grand jury's point of view is, do you have a concise location that would tell your customer what is the breakdown of the water costs? Our answer is yes, we finally gave you that chart at the public hearing. But in terms of our Prop 218 notice and all the previous newsletters, fact sheet, advertisement, whatever, workshops, you know, we talk about it, but we never have this one-stop shopping. And my guess is that's what they were looking for, is have you provide a spot, a convenient spot for your customer to figure this out without having to go through 3 different reports. And that's how I took it. And I think that's part of the reason why our response was so long because we made many different efforts, and we are trying to list all the efforts to demonstrate that we are responsive. But what it shows to me from a customer's point of view is, do I really have to go through all those steps to figure this out?
Right.
And I think this is where kind of the flavor and the context comes in, where I think where I would guess the grand jury is coming in is that, yes, it's all there, but you're not making it easy. And my personal point of view is, as a water district, we probably should eat that one because, yeah, we never put it in one chart until later in that one workshop, right?
Mm-hmm.
So, but that's just me, 1 out of 5.
Well, it'll be interesting to see what your colleagues
I know.
feel.
Yeah.
From my perspective as your general manager, I wasn't willing to say that the district is not being transparent. And if the board would like me to change that response, I would serve at your pleasure.
It does not say the district is not transparent. I would have problem with that. It says the district is not sufficiently transparent.
Right,
That's
and that's
different.
to what, yeah,
right.
degree.
It's the degree, right? If it's outright say the district is not transparent, I would definitely disagree with that finding.
If they would have said, we believe that the district could have made this information more user-friendly or more concise or in one-stop shopping, then I would have been, at least in my draft letter that you're reviewing today, I would have been more receptive to say, okay, I agree with that finding. But I thought it was pretty strongly worded that we're not sufficiently transparent when they kind of contradicted that in their own report, acknowledging all the things that we tried to do. So I kind of felt that it was a little inconsistent. But again, that's just one opinion.
And you're just hearing from one
I'd love
person
to hear
from the
what
board?
the rest of the board will say about these issues, because eventually, as a board, you're going to have to come together on what your response letter will say or not say.
Yeah. No, I agree.
But I appreciate the feedback.
Director Weed?
First, on our introduction, this was actually a fairly, compared to the historic record of the grand jury and the type of analysis and investigations that they run on districts, we came up with some complimentary statements, and I would encourage us to consider incorporating them in our initial first paragraph, thanking them for acknowledging the relatively sound management of the district. There was no misfeasance, there was no malfeasance identified by the grand jury in this report, and they stated that in different words.
Those are the two key words that should be brought up.
Well, they didn't use those words, but they did use terminology which was complimentary of the administration of the district. Next, we do reference a chart. It may be helpful to include the chart as an attachment because it is our definitive response to the finding, and I think it see, here it is, guys.
Yeah, we did have a previous version of this where we incorporated this pie chart. Ultimately, with much debate and deliberation, we decided to take it out of the report, and that was because the pie chart was created for a board meeting relatively hastily, and the legend and the terminology to a layperson might not be as clear as what you would like. And we thought that, ironically, because somebody reading our responses wouldn't get the benefit of the presentation that we made during the board meeting, that incorporating the chart might be used against us by somebody just reading the responses. So we decided not to do it, but
I'll defer to your judgment on that, because this, is, as you pointed out, is a structured review that generally is not to your benefit as an entity. they're not looking for, they're out to try and find deficiencies rather than trying to promote positive elements.
Right, so, you know, we were thinking short and sweet is the way to go, as much as possible on
Yeah. And unfortunately, the issue of transparency, rate-based conservation is inherently and intentionally non-transparent. And because we are not matching our variable cost with our variable revenues, and our fixed costs with our fixed revenues. And that had been the directed practice under the best management practices when we let the tribes through the gate. And a result of the Natural Resources Council, where they established rules that made no sense. So if we go into the transparency issue, which is a challenge because they use it and then they don't want, as you read their report, they couldn't go there to say that the rate-based conservation itself was the problem. And led us to some really unfortunate decisions. I would hope that we will continue our efforts, and we might wish to state that we have done extraordinary efforts to try and make it more responsible by increasing our service charge and decreasing the commodity charge as a percentage. If we can continue that, and we have a long ways to go. That's the reality. That's the testimony I gave because I was the one board member that was called and asked to testify. But they couldn't. But given the political realities that rate-based conservation is still believed by some to be a socially acceptable, however financially irresponsible it is, that's our challenge. And it's difficult to put that in a letter in our response.
They wouldn't comprehend it.
Yeah, I would advise not
It's not
to.
necessarily a full board opinion either.
Yep.
Yeah, it's a cultural and political argument that, but I would note that we have made significant efforts in making our budgets and billings more transparent in the sense we've gone from 9% fixed charge up to over 35% fixed charge, and we need to get up to at least 65 or more.
Okay, Director, we think we're going a little off tangent here. Director Akbari, your comments, please.
Yeah. So on finding 18-35, responding to Director Huang's comments, I like the district's approach. I'm comfortable with what we have currently. I feel like what we did to try to be transparent going into the rate increase was defensible, and I think we've made a good argument here on why we believe that's defensible. Not to say that it can't be improved on, but I think looking at it again as like a snapshot in time at that point, I think what the district aimed to do was to be sufficiently transparent, and so that's why I feel like it is a defensible argument, and I'm comfortable with that, with what we have currently. On finding 18-37, I would just add one more point. We have in there that the cost of living in ACWD's service area is among the highest in the state. I would also like to add that the labor market that we are competing in requires that our salaries be a little bit higher than the average compensation throughout the state, because it is an area where you need a much more competitive salary to be able to attract the right labor. That's a point that I would like that we add into into that paragraph. Otherwise, I'm pretty comfortable with the rest of the letter.
Thank you. Well, I'm satisfied with the letter. I think the grand jury report was basically written before we even responded. You know, and I think we're going to see it again. It'll be brought up again to be waved in front of us at some point, most likely. Not transparent enough. Well, I remember the public in the rate meeting shouting us down so that we would not be able to provide our basis as to why we did this. We had our models here, and granted they were complicated. They didn't want to hear that. We couldn't be more transparent because they already made up their minds. That's my opinion. As one board member, having talked to many of them and having read all the comments. They weren't going to listen to us. They were listening to a member of the public who was taking what we put out, morphing it to what he wanted to say, and publishing it. I think we did more than hundreds of agencies did to try to bend over backwards to help. We went with a electronic Prop 218 method of protest. Nobody does that. And we're not transparent enough? I was frustrated by that because no matter how transparent we get, we're never going to be transparent enough until we say what they want to hear. And that's the problem right now with the whole country. Groups will say, you're wrong because you're not telling us what we want to hear. I think we've done a tremendous effort to try to solve that problem, but we're never gonna. I think we should just quietly disagree with them and say, hey, you know what, we don't really agree with that. We're pretty transparent. We didn't even get into the transparency awards we've won. We won't go there. We're not an evil, conniving district. The public didn't like what we did. It was difficult. I read it. And yeah, they had some points. They got points. They have a valid argument. Just like we had a valid argument on the other side. But no matter what we said, it wasn't going to be transparent enough. We could have put more graphs, charts, whatever. No, they had already came to their conclusion. Overly generous salaries. Sorry. Yes, our employees are well paid. Never say they're not. Overly generous? I don't think so. I can't buy my house today. You know, and rents? Good God. You can't live in our district. And if you look at the charts about how much our employees make, don't look at some of them. You don't want to. Because you're going to have to question that overly generous remark. Because they can't afford to live here. So, and it doesn't anywhere nearly address efficiency. You could have, I haven't ever been able to put the analogy together yet, but where you've got the 4 employees that make, $1 million each, and you got the 1,000 employees that make, let's say $10,000 each. Which group is better if they're doing the same task?
For the record, we have no employees that make $1 million.
Well, no, I get it. But I'm trying to come up with that someday because...
This is not the hospital district.
You could pay your employees dirt, but if you got a whole lot of them and nothing gets done, then what good is it? But if you have a few good core, solid team, and you pay them well, that counts. So, anyway, I am perfectly satisfied with the letter. I think we got to keep it short. I think we need to address, I think we've addressed it. I'm good with it. I think we're trying to do things that they said, yeah, okay, they pointed out some things, good, let's try to deal with it. And I think we've addressed that and said we're going to try to deal with it. But on the other hand, I think the report was written before we went in. Whoever wrote that report, I wish I had more faith in the grand jury. They interviewed one director, 2 staff members. 2 staff members?
Correct.
2 staff members and 1 director, and wrote a report about, well, see, that's our letter, wrote a report about the Alameda County Water District and how we set rates. Did any of them ever set foot in this room through all those meetings? I would trust Mr. Lemos before I would trust the Alameda County jury, because he comes here. That's the problem I had with that report. But it's out there, it's done, it's part of the process. We didn't look bad, actually. We really didn't look bad. It contradicts itself. Because a lot of the stuff they wanted to say, they couldn't say. They had to say things that counteracted each other, because reality, that was the case. You're not transparent enough, but, oh yeah, you're doing really good being transparent. So anyway, I like the letter the way it is, and I'd just like to move on. We'll see it again. And hopefully we won't see the grand jury again. Hopefully we're never going to have to do what we did with rates again like that. Hoping that was a one-time shot. We'll see. You never know what the future holds. So anyway, that was my comment. Hopefully that works.
Good comments. So, you know, I've read through, I don't know how many grand jury reports on all kinds of agencies in the county over the years, and I'm kind of in agreement with Director Weed here. Just in retrospective, most of the grand jury reports on serious agencies like ACWD, larger organizations, have been pretty damning. And if you read the entire grand jury report from this year, and they always try to rank it in terms of most important down to least important in the county. We were the second to last report, and the last report was actually positive on their re-review of an agency. So if you go to the first report on the City of Oakland and its finances, it was extremely damning. And in that report on the City of Oakland, they made complimentary remarks about how well managed ACWD was in that report on Oakland, and that City of Oakland should try to, you know, steer themselves towards some of the things we've been doing on handling our legacy costs. If you look at their report on Lake Temescal and the deterioration in all of the infrastructure around that lake, it was in effect validating all of the investment that we made of about $70 million in our seismic improvements and upgrades over the last few years. So actually, in one way, I agree with Director Huang. We could have been a lot more transparent. I've tried to be really introspective about this, asking myself, what can I learn as a director? How can I improve myself in the future in representing the public? And I look back and I say, man, we went through 7 public meetings. We really tried to do our very best. We were there to answer questions. And a small group of citizens, led by one, essentially did not participate. The most visible critics of the district, the ones that I believe led to this grand jury report submitted for an investigation of the district, were the very ones that did not participate in our 7 financial workshops. And yet in the very end, they come out of the foxhole and they ambush the directors and the district management. That to me is not the spirit of democracy, participation, that we invite the public to participate. We set up those opportunities. If they have a different agenda, I think we need to call them on the carpet for it, and I will. I made a couple of recommendations to staff about adding in a couple of bullet points for where the grand jury was complimentary toward the district on the way it's handling its pension costs, and the fact that part of our rate increase, while it may have been painful, will result in $58 million of savings down the road, and in their words, help moderate future rate increases. So I'm hoping we can put in a couple of plugs there. Lastly, and I'll direct my comments to Director Akbari, I'm going to say this gently, but in a chiding way. Last year on February 9th, you said our rate increase was indefensible, that we were not being transparent with the public. Tonight, you're directly saying the opposite. You're saying the rate increase was defensible, that you've changed your tune on our level of transparency. And I will grant you the fact that you were not part of those 7 rate increases, rate hearings, the financial workshops that we had. So you were somewhat at a disadvantage, but I kind of appreciate it when our directors are consistent. And if you take a stand on something, then stand for it. If you've grown through and learned something, then express that too. But don't directly contradict your own vote on the board. Those are my comments.
Okay.
If I can respond to that.
Please. And I'm trying to be as respectful as I can.
Appreciate that. My comments tonight were that what the district did to try to be transparent during the process were defensible. I did not comment on the increase itself.
You said right now in this meeting that the rate increase was defensible. Those were your words.
I'm pretty sure what I said, or what I meant to say, was that what the district did to try to be transparent during that process, that was defensible. I just want to clarify that.
Okay.
Any comments from the public on our grand jury report?
Okay.
All right.
Well, I want to thank the board for your thoughtful feedback. We will make some of the, we will strive to make all of the revisions that have been requested and come back, and I'll probably get you an advanced copy before the board meeting with more time. Because of my vacation, that was difficult. I wanted to review it one last time before submitting it to you for review, and then hopefully we'll be in a position where we can send something to the grand jury and meet the deadline without having to do something like a special board meeting. Okay? Okay, thank you.
So we move on to item 6.4.2.
Correct, and Mr. Wunderlich has a brief announcement that he would like to share with the board.
All right, just like to share with the board that we recently received notice that for the second year in a row we have received the Achievement of Excellence in Procurement Award from the National Procurement Institute. And This award was established about 20 years ago by the National Procurement Institute to measure excellence in 5 broad categories: innovation, professionalism, productivity, leadership, and e-procurement. And so our participation in this program and our ability to achieve this award really demonstrates a commitment by the district to having best procurement practices, to having ongoing education and training, and to really looking for opportunities to also make good use of technology. And I'd just like to commend our purchasing office staff who have worked very diligently, not just to apply for the award, but also on what they do day in and day out to make sure we have an excellent procurement operation.
So thank you. That's a great achievement for our staff. I don't have any other specific general manager report items, but I did want to mention that my understanding is Director Gunther turns into a pumpkin at around
9 o'clock.
9 o'clock. So you do have your director comments, and we do have a closed session. I think if we could get to closed session relatively quickly, we will be able to cover all of this by 9 o'clock. But I think it's important that Director Gunther have an opportunity to participate in the closed session. So time watch.
Mr. Shaver, I don't want to exclude any board reports here, but if you could give the report on 7.2, I would appreciate that, because I think you could maybe more insightfully and concisely.
Well, we'll see. We'll see about that, but I will try. So on July 19th, President Sethy and I carpooled to Sacramento together to talk about the Delta Conveyance Finance Authority JPA meeting, first ever, the inaugural meeting for that group. And we spent a significant amount of time talking strategy on how to best position the district in terms of being able to influence the JPA. Director Sethy also had some conversations with at least one colleague on the JPA board, and we were able to meet with that person and was able to kind of find out some additional information. And essentially we learned through a conversation that I had with another general manager that ACWD for this particular group was considered a wild card and unpredictable. So we focused, and President Sethy represented the district very well in this, on building relationships and trust, as opposed to going into the JPA meeting, trying to position ourselves to get a guaranteed spot on the oversight committee. And so it was fascinating to be present at an inaugural meeting for a completely new government agency that will be around for maybe half a century or longer until the project is completed. A lot of work is being done behind the scenes regarding the financing of the project. Mr. Wunderlich took a trip to Los Angeles to meet with other agencies in terms of the mechanisms that might be employed for bond financing. So I just wanted to just kind of convey that our board president, I think, represented the district very well at this meeting and made some serious inroads in terms of developing the kind of relationships that I think will be necessary moving forward. And I think we're positioned well ultimately to be able to influence the financing of the state's largest infrastructure project ever in terms of dollars.
I will just add one point to the meeting, which was kind of overwhelming. In your first meeting, we're approving a petition to U.S. EPA for $1.6 billion of a loan guarantee. And just to see the number on paper that we're voting on this, and that it could expand up to approximately $10 billion on that loan guarantee. That's one of the first actions the board took.
A mere 10% of the total project cost.
Yeah. Okay, back to 7.1. Oh, let me add, we have our next meeting, the Delta Conveyance Finance Authority was originally supposed to meet like once a quarter or something, or even once a year. But at this meeting, it was decided that we are going to meet once a month, the third Thursday of every month. So the next meeting is on the 16th next week. And at the same time that our meeting is held in the morning through the lunch hour, the afternoon meeting of the Delta Conveyance Design and Construction Authority will occur. And both Mr. Shaver and I attended that meeting as well in the afternoon. So they're planning to have both meetings on the same date in Sacramento because people are flying in from all around the state. And you have press there too, reporting on things. So it's for everyone's convenience. Back to 7.1, there was, I'm going to give the report and then hand it off to Director Weed. We had a review of legislation from around the state, including the status of the water tax, and then we had our associated meeting on election of the Special Districts Representative to the County Oversight Board, of which I was elected to. So that's my report. Director Weed, did you have anything to add to that meeting?
There was a law related to limiting the potential tenure and other issues relating to board members that I was surprised the special districts had appeared to be supportive of, and we need to get clarification on what that effort was. It was an initiative.
I sent an email to our general counsel about that, and it turns out it was not applicable to special districts like ACWD.
Yes.
So we don't have to worry about it.
Correct. It was not applicable to county water districts.
Right.
It was applicable to other types of special districts, but not to Alameda County Water District.
But beware of anything that goes into the hopper in Sacramento, and they have a tendency to make amendments. So I think we should be aware of what the implications are to other districts, and do our best to make sure that if it does pop in at the last minute, that it doesn't include us. And get Aqua to step up to that one, because apparently the Special Districts Association did support it, which I found interesting.
Yeah, CSDA did support that legislation.
Yeah, it looked, and I don't know the details, it sounded a bit odd. On your earlier conversation with the, well, it's not report, I'll wait on, there's an element of an extension to the state water contract that I think we need to discuss. Everybody's bring to the attention of our staff.
Okay, I'm going to cover one item that's not on here before I go to 7.3. So I attended last Thursday the South Bay Engineers Club meeting, and the presentation was on using satellite scanning. The same presentation was given here at the district. I found this to be absolutely fascinating. I hope we will continue to investigate use of this new technology, which identifies leaks in pipeline systems, and both for water and sewer. And it's amazing how precisely they can identify down to the spot, general spot, where major leaks are occurring in your system. And in a discussion after that presentation, I was talking to the host, the presenter, that my initial feeling was that this may be a very good insurance policy on our district, specifically because we're on the Hayward Fault. And so we expect we're going to have 1,500 to 2,000 water main breaks after a major quake. And it may take us up to 9-12 months to restore water to the entire community. And if we had a roadmap to where things are currently in the system using this technology, it could be really helpful. So East Bay Mud is already an early adopter of the technology, and they were giving some presentation information from there, and then from Little Rock, Arkansas, a few other communities. But I hope our staff will continue to take a look at this because we're going to roll out AMI, but this kind of gives a grander view of where things are, and they might complement one another and help save us, in the event of a major quake. All right, lastly, I attended the Aqua Business Development Committee meeting, which I'm appointed to on Friday, July 27th. If anybody wants to see the results of a very detailed survey that was done of Aqua members, sponsors, and attendees, I have it right here if you're interested. We had quite a good discussion. Our meeting was intended to be from just 1 to 3, but we went up until 4 o'clock and went through a lot of survey data. And I was at the Board of Directors meeting for Aqua in the morning and had lunch there with them. So I was able to talk with people about a diverse set of topics that are going on, and it had not gone unnoticed by the Board of Directors that ACWD rose to some prominence now on the Delta Conveyance Finance Authority. So some good healthy discussion on that. There was a request, and I'm sorry I haven't discussed this with you first, it's a minor one, that each member of the business committee become as an agency a sponsor of Aqua, and there is an effort to put out we were drafting up a kind of a marketing proposition to districts across the state why they should become sponsors of Aqua and what the benefits are. And my comment was that, like a lot of districts, we have our budgets, and we're not sure what the real benefits are, and that we need to quantify those for all of the members that we're trying to make this request of. But there's some very good information in the report, and we went through, I don't know, about 20 different membership fee revenue raising opportunities for Aqua. And the Board of Directors has set a goal for this year and subsequent years, and it looks like we're pretty well on track for meeting this year's goals, except for one area. So I'll provide a further update at a future meeting. It was a good meeting overall, and I just want to close with this. You all know Betty Boatman, who is a longtime member of the Contra Costa Water District Board and also a former president of Aqua. And after the meeting, we sat down and talked for half an hour about what both of our boards have been discussing when it comes to possibly going to tiered rates. And they've been using Raftelis for their ongoing financial workshops this past year. And Betty told me that after long discussion in many meetings, their board concluded 5-0 that there was no compelling case to go to tiered rates. Not one board member felt that there was a compelling case. And she asked me, she said, "Have you heard of a good business case?" And so to know that another agency that's comparable to us, they have 500,000 customers, roughly the same number of fire hydrants in their district, has been considerately going through the same discussion, and with her seniority in the industry, to say not one of us on the board felt that there was a compelling case to go to tiered rates. So, well, we talked about some other things too. I just wanted to convey her opinion. You're welcome to talk to her.
Director Sethy, if I could make, just before we close the meeting.
Yeah.
I'll make a note that Joe Perry of Perry Farms, who had his farm in Ardenwood on the lands leased from East Bay Regional, from the city of Fremont actually, and when portions of it were leased to the East Bay Regional Park District, passed away died on Wednesday during heart surgery.
Oh, I'm so sorry.
His son Joe is president of the Farm Bureau. Second, there was a note that I learned today in an editorial that was given to us on from talking about the tunnel project, that the governor is attempting to rush through an amendment or a 50-year extension of the state water contract. And there are major issues in that state water contract. It was due to expire and need renewal in about 2034, 2035. But if they're going to try and do that before the November election, there are some major issues that hopefully, including water marketing, that would be of great benefit to ACWD. And so we need to get smart real fast and see if we can get some input into that discussion. And it will have some influence in your refinance of Joint Power Authority, or your financing authority.
And Mr. Rand is closely engaged on that and has been involved in all those discussions.
So if there's a way we could, given the very short notice on that one, if there's a need for special board input, please let us know. I think we can pull something together quite quickly, because that is our big contract, above all others.
Yeah, unfortunately, there was an op-ed piece in today's Mercury News that mischaracterized really what's going on, and so that's not helping.
Okay, good. So getting smart on what's going on there would be a big help.
Any other director reports before we go into closed session? Seeing none, could I ask our general counsel to guide us into closed session?
It is now 8:39, and the board is going to convene into closed session pursuant to California Government Code Section 54957.6, conference with labor negotiators. Agency designated negotiators include Robert Shaver, Jennifer Solito, and Glenn Berkheimer. And the employee organizations are the Operating Engineers Local 3 and ACWD Operators Association. We now convene into closed session.
It's your problem.
Okay, we're reconvening the meeting at 9:17 p.m. And I'm going to turn it over to Mr. Shaver to talk about what we did in closed session.
Thank you, President Sethy. So in closed session, pursuant to California Government Code Section 54957.6, involving a conference with labor negotiators, the agency-designated negotiators were Robert Shaver, Jennifer Solito, and Glenn Berkheimer. The employee organizations are Operating Engineers Local 3 and the ACWD Operators Association. And during the closed session, the board provided direction to its negotiators. And that is our closed session report for this evening.
Okay. Any other staff reports? Anything? Anything from the directors?
No.
Okay. We will close the meeting then for tonight.
Okay. Thank you.